and welcome to the 10th episode of Point of View, a series of leadership discussions by Amazing Workplaces. In this series, I'm getting into a discussion with people in leadership positions from various organizations spread across India as well as across borders. The idea is to get into conversation with them, to get them to share their views about the various aspects that make organizations really amazing. The purpose is to understand what drives leaders to their own workplaces so that we can delve deeper into corporate philosophy and share with you path breaking ideas that come straight from people who have gone ahead and changed their workplace to make them better, more inviting, and extremely thriving for their own people. Today, our guest on the show is someone who has over 35 years of experience in senior leadership positions across large reputed organizations around the world. He's a dynamic and visionary leader who has conceived and built the aerospace strategy for the $20.7 billion multinational Mahindra Group, which culminated in the decision to enter the utility aircraft and aerostructures market with a globalized focus through a mix of organic and inorganic growth. In the aerostructures business, he led to the subsequent definition, creation, and operationalization of a comprehensive aerostructures manufacturing facility in Bangalore, India, to cater to the growing demand in the global supply chain, along with strong technology partnerships and business relationships with major aircraft manufacturers and their key suppliers. Today, this plant is supplying as Tier 1 to various OEMs. To start with, these are just two of his long list of achievements. So, without going any further, let me welcome our guest today, Arvind Mehra, Managing Director and CEO, Mahindra Aerostructures, and Executive Director and CEO, Mahindra Aerospace. Among many of his prestigious positions, Arvind is currently director on the board of General Aircraft Manufacturing Association USA and a member of Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He has also been member Civil Aviation Aeronautics Promotion Advisory Council Ministry in the past. Hello, everyone. I'm really so delighted to have you on a show Point of View. It's really a great privilege to have you on our platform. Thank you so much for taking out the time to talk to us from your busy schedule.
It's a pleasure, Ekta, and I am very grateful that you thought of talking to me. And as I said, amazing workplaces by definition excited me to talk about my experience. So I look forward to conversation.
Thank you so much for that compliment. And I mean, talking to somebody from Mahindra is a dream come true for me and my platform as well. Because Mahindra is one of the companies which is looked up to in the business world as a people friendly company. Yeah. In fact, your owner, Mr. Mahindra, is like known to be promoting people in such a big way. So, I mean, just to introduce, I have seen a couple of your interviews, and what I've seen is, those are mostly business interviews, and this is going to be so different. I'm seriously excited to, talk to you and ask you the questions that are actually ready with us. So, coming to it, actually, as you know, actually, this is this series. Through this series, we're trying to understand leadership journeys and how successful leaders have helped shape their own organizations and build high performing teams to lead them to success and profitability. So, Arvind, in your career, you have led many organizations from the front. For most part of your career, you have been at the helm of affairs, being the director and CFO at Caltex way back in 1994, sorry. And later you have been a part of Airtel as Chief Operating Officer and CFO. Your career path has been truly phenomenal and aspirational for so many people. So, can you please share the most important decisions that have helped you build the foundation of such a great career?
Ekta, I'm going to start with basics. So, the first of all, I always say that your qualification and your knowledge becomes topmost priority. You cannot grow unless you have acquired basic qualification, which means you must always be ready to learn in life. And the second thing is there's no substitute for hard work. You have to work hard. I mean, of course, I was fortunate. I worked with some of the best leaders I could have, but there was no substitute for the fact that I had to really put in a lot of effort. I was open to challenges. A lot of people used to question my decision to say that how did you choose to move into operations when you were a finance professional? But I always felt that being a finance professional does not restrict me to become purely a CFO. I think I can utilize my knowledge in finance to enhance other competency, and therefore I moved into operations way back in early 90s, and then kept my eyes open in terms of learning from my peers, my colleagues, my superiors. I always knew that if I'm going to enter a new space, there'll be many things I don't know. So I always told myself there's no harm in saying and recognizing I don't know. So I never said I know everything. And I still keep saying that my quest for knowledge and my learning hasn't stopped. I
Right.
keep looking for newer opportunities and new areas where I can enhance my skill set. And that's probably one of the basic foundations I had. And of course, my dedication to the role I was performing. And of course, I was fortunate, as I said.
No, that's pretty interesting. In fact, I was going through the list of your education and I was pretty impressed, So it shows, that foundation is very essential for a great career. So thank you so much. So Arun, tell me, you have spent a maximum part of your entire career journey leading from the top. So how does it feel to see an organization from the top? And also, as leaders move in hierarchy, how can they remain connected to people?
See, there is a very common saying which most people end up using, so I'm not going to avoid it. It says that you're only lonely at top. But the definition of being lonely at top is very misunderstood. Being lonely at top implies that you're the one who have to carry the can and you're the one who should be ready to take tougher decisions in life. But I always say that being lonely on top may not be a choice, but being aloof is a choice. So, how do you distinguish between being lonely and aloof? If
Right.
you're aloof as a leader on the top, that's a very big drawback. Being lonely, if you recognize to be simply meaning that you have to have the ability to take decisions, they have to be tough at times, take it. But being aloof means you're isolating yourself from a lot of knowledge and learning you could have inherited from people who are working with you, including your subordinates, who could have given you insights for you to be able to take decisions. So I have always chosen to be very open. I mean, as I said, I have people connected with me since start of my career. Until date, they are connected with me, and many of them are today leaders themselves. So we always exchange ideas. So I do not count myself to be lonely in the sense of being lonely because I do not make myself aloof. I engage with people, I engage with my peers, I talk to my subordinates, I talk to my other counterparts, and I engage with the industry leaders, I converse, I continue to learn. So um, you have to have an ability to be watchful that the best idea could come from the junior most person in the organization. And that has happened.
Yeah.
Encourage, that's the true trait of you being a leader. And as you mentioned, Mahindra Group, it's a live example. Mr. Anand Mahindra is a live example of how leading from the top and how he gets the best out of people. So there's a lot of learning within our own company. So you just have to keep watching, keep your eyes open, and of course, engage with everybody.
So basically, that's your advice also to people who are actually on their way up, that they should not stay aloof from the people around them.
And also, I always say, don't let the success come to your head.
Right.
Because don't forget that you had to cross a path to reach on top. Now, people can say that, you could be lucky to reach on the top, but there are very few examples of being lucky to reach on the top and then stay there. People who are great leaders stay there. And second thing is, you should be a leader who is recognized when you don't have a position, not because people respect you for the position you have. So, how do you command respect? The respect comes out of people genuinely looking up to you as a leader. and those who may not even be reporting to you, those who seek your advice, not because you're their boss and you're determining their annual appraisal cycle. To me, that doesn't make sense. The relationships between a leader and the team is not driven by a time bound appraisal system. It is driven by a feeling of mutual respect, a feeling which comes out of a leader to recognize that, he doesn't have to be aloof. He has to take his people along. Nobody can travel alone. He can travel for some time, but never for the rest of his life.
Very true. Very true. Uh, okay, so Arvind, while we are talking about leadership and how leadership, good leaders actually take the people along with them in the journey, uh, we also understand that this is something which can be a part of culture, right? And a culture of a company actually, somehow sometimes promotes these things. And since you are such a successful leader, I would like to understand from you that culture we say is always built top down. Yeah. So people actually try to follow what leaders do. So what does culture mean to you, and how do great leaders lay the foundation of a great culture for an organization to thrive on?
See, you're right. Culture travels from top down. There's no denying of the fact, but I don't say a culture can survive purely being driven top down. A culture has to cultivate itself in the organization. No individual can make or break the culture of an organization. So there are many things which come into play. First of all, what is your individual value system? How much are you prepared to be changed? How much are you prepared to adopt and enhance that culture within yourself? I mean, there's an organization can have any culture, or maybe the best culture in the world, but if you don't have the ability to absorb it and to become a leader who's truly taking advantage of that culture, it's not going to go anywhere. So yes, the culture has to travel top down, but at the same time, it is driven by the individual himself. Does he have internal capability to create and build that culture? And secondly, does he have internal capability to integrate with the culture of the organization? As I said, and you said it also, Mahindra, as I said, is a wonderful company when it comes to culture of the organization. We believe in ethics, we believe in governance, we believe in respect for individual. We encourage people to accept no limits. We encourage people to have alternate thinking. Now, it gave me a very ideal platform to grow. And I was fortunate that my own thinking aligned very well with the organization. So I never had a conflict in the way I wanted to do things, and the company was thinking differently. On the contrary, the company's culture is so vast that I can spend rest of my life absorbing out of it. You agree? So therefore, uh, again, choice to work in an organization definitely lies with a person. So a leader who does not have capability to understand his own desires in terms of the way he wants to operate and then align it with the company he wants to operate with is not going to succeed. So which means, in simplistic terms, when I'm making a choice for an organization, am I going to be able to adjust to the culture of the company? That's your starting point. The second thing is, am I going to be in a position to change myself because the culture of the company I'm working for is much better? And therefore, I need to have the ability to format my thinking and say, no, I think I have inherited an organization which is so wonderful that I should be able to make the most of it.
Right.
So there are multiple things which come into play. And then, as I said, you have to imbibe those values within the team you have. Standing alone, you cannot build companies or an organization or a culture. So when we define what is acceptable culture of the organization, then what role we play as a leader to make sure it is traveling all the way to the junior most person in the organization. And I'll give you an example. When you talk of respect for individual, which is core value of our group, the
Right.
respect for individual starts from the first individual you meet, who could be way down in the hierarchy. So somebody, one of my wonderful bosses once told me, he says, watch how people behave in a restaurant and watch how they deal with a server, for example.
Right.
So, because at that place, they have nothing hiding or, trying to cover their actual makeup. They're behaving in their most natural sense. So, you have to make sure that you watch whether you are a person who is making sure that the culture of the organization is getting the desired attention, and then making sure everybody under you and with you and part of you and in your peers are exactly replicating that culture. And you will create a wonderful organization once people love to work in the company. And I'll give you, in COVID times, how many times I get requests from people who say, I want to go to office, I miss it.
Yeah.
So I think culture is a combination of starting from the top, your ability to absorb it, your ability to continue to learn, your ability to align with the organization culture, but most importantly, make sure that your team does the same. And that's how you will create an organization-wide work culture.
Right. So basically, while culture is driven from the top, it has to be absorbed and imbibed by the people.
Yeah.
And any person who is not a cultural fit would not be able to take it in the long run, right?
But again, it's the responsibility of the leader to find out why is he not fitting. I've had individuals who did not fit, who did not fit in the way we thought is the right way to work. For example, if we believe in a collective action and a particular individual has a tendency not to agree without really putting forward why doesn't he agree. So you have to have, as I said, then an ability to first understand why is he differing.
Right.
And at times you may have to take tough decision to ensure that a single individual cannot spoil the overall culture. Now, again, as I said, understand the difference between culture and your value system,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes people misunderstand values as negotiable. No. So if something is interrupting
Yeah.
the core values, these are non-negotiable. For example, ethics and governance are non-negotiable. So you cannot say that culturally we are supposed to look after everyone, but that may have to change if you discover somebody is in violation of ethics and governance. Having
Absolutely.
said that, that does not mean you will treat him. That means that you have to have an ability to understand why he behaved like that. Give him the natural dignity and respect you will in a process. But at the end of the day, you may have to take a tough decision. So it's a very tough battle, and it's a very nice balancing act you have to do almost every day.
Okay, thank you so much for the valuable insights. So, Arvind, tell me one thing. In today's times, we see many organizations being formed, yeah, reaching a great height and then suddenly coming plummeting down and eventually disappearing. So, while on the other hand, we've had the Mahindras, the Tatas, the Infosys, Wipros, I mean, just to name a few organizations that stand as unprecedented role models for the business world. What do you feel new businesses need to learn from these deeply rooted visionaries?
So you have, as they say, history has an advantage. You can always go back and see it. If you see the way, for example, Mahindra was founded, and
Yeah,
if you see the advertisement they had released at the time of announcing the formation,
yeah,
the advertisement talks about the values of the organization. You agree? So these are companies which were built not for one day. They were built for generations. So when you try to build something which has to last for generations, you have to make sure you make it generation proof.
right.
So we've all gone through multiple revolutions. You talk about cultural revolution, digital revolution, and the way the organizations of today are, and the way the current generation thinks, etc. But these are companies which always focused on doing the business the right way in a manner that you are holding this business as custodians of the next generation. So therefore, you have a responsibility to hold it correctly and handle it appropriately. So if you notice, all these companies believed in having an organization which can survive, countless number of years.
True.
And therefore, they identified what should be done correctly. And again, I'll come back to the core values, the governance, the ethics, no shortcuts, do the right thing.
Yeah.
And my personal philosophy also says the same. If you ultimately believe in doing the right thing, eventually you will succeed.
Right.
So, and when it comes to new startups, now there's nothing wrong in the new startups to be rash, because sometimes the invention and innovation comes out of being rash or being a person who's disruptive.
Hmm.
But when you start combining this attitude of being rash or disruptive or innovative to short-term success and immediate success, and trying to merge the success of multiple years into 1 year, you will fail because you will make mistakes and you will eventually disappear. And that's why I've noticed, if you go back, IT resolution, the digital resolution revolution, sorry, and how many companies today exist? Many disappear. But there are companies who, while being innovative and disruptive, learned from companies like Mahindra to say, okay, what did they do right in terms of building an organization? And you've seen the successes and you've seen the phenomenal growth. So, my advice to startups is there is no shortcut. Shortcut is the longest distance between 2 points. There's no shortcut. You cannot, you can be innovative, you can be disruptive, you can be very creative, you can be very young, and you can have millions of ideas, but don't look for a
Sure.
success which should come once you get up from your sleep.
Right.
Invest in that success, and you will remain successful for many, many, many years to come.
Right. Thank you so much. That was really a valuable answer for us. Uh, so, coming to the last question, Arvind, COVID-19 has showed the world that disruption is inevitable and change management is the key to great leadership. How do you feel the world managed and is managing an uncalled for situation like COVID? And what should change in organizations post the pandemic?
Firstly, COVID-19, I'm sure it's almost a year now, must have taught the world a lesson that a global disruption is possible.
Right.
You know, because today we are such a connected world. You cannot have a problem which is just isolated in one part of the world and you just forget about it. So it's been an eye opener for everybody.
True.
World's best companies, which have the best forecasting systems, could never predict what can happen. But the companies who were open to accepting disruption, for example, our company, and very willing to adjust to such a wide scale disruption and quickly align their working models to the way current requirement is, did very well. If I look at Mahindra as a group, or if I specifically look at aerospace as a business, we had responsibility to continue to supply parts to aircraft manufacturers. And in most cases, we were essential industry, so we had to continue to operate. So we had to use a mix of a combination of having our plant open, but at the same time following the most strictest health safety protocols. And as I said, one of the advantages I had, I'm a trained crisis management professional. Therefore, some of the learnings I had in my previous life and business continuity planning was useful if you talk specific of my business per se. But if you talk larger, uh, this pandemic has taught the world that no matter how best your contingency planning is, you could be left wanting, and how quickly you adjust yourself. For example, work from home. Today, work from home has brought forward its own advantages and disadvantages. Now, companies are trying to align those advantages and disadvantages. They might get the most productive output out of an individual.
Yeah.
You know, we were probably one of the very few companies who actually came out with work from home guidelines. So we basically said that even if you're working from home, we will respect your privacy. We respect that you need to be available for X number of hours. So as I said, the companies who could align themselves to to the new way of working came out successful. Second thing which came very handy
Yeah.
is my answer to the previous question. That when you built a business which is not meant for one generation, you were always planning for this to be a custodian of many, many generations to come. You had necessary financial planning and discipline in place, which is the biggest strength this group has. So we were able to handle the shocks. You agree? So we were able to handle the shocks, and more importantly, we were taking everybody together. We focused on the importance and value of the safety of the employee, and at the same time, what's the right thing to do. Uh, I'm also aware of some best practices of other companies around the globe because we engaged in multiple workshops and we engaged in multiple knowledge sharing platforms. And I've seen many companies who had the similar philosophy of not getting worried about what's going to happen in next 6 to 9 months or 1 year, but thinking about how do I align myself to be the new normal, which might be the new normal for 2, 3, 4 years to come. I've actually come out very successful. So every challenge in life actually teaches you something new, and we've seen many. We've seen global financial crisis, we've seen currency crisis in previous lives, we've seen a lot of issues, and the world has always come out of it. And I'm sure the human spirit to fight out will eventually play, and a majority of the world will come back to normal very soon. And of course, you and I, all of us, are looking forward to that new normal. But as I said, it'll be a new normal.
Okay, thank you, Arvind. In fact, the way you like connected the previous answer to this one, that companies, yes, companies, that are working for generations to come, will definitely have some kind of planning to bear these kind of shocks. Yeah. Thank you so much, Arvind. I mean, this was a really insightful conversation. It has been wonderful talking to you today. Thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule for us. Thanks once again.
And my pleasure, Ekta, and I wish you all the very best. And I always say that stay safe.
Thank you so much.